connect your gateway to AI and the cloud.
So we'll quickly go through a demonstration of these services. Then I also like to show you that the AMIs, the EBS, and the snapshot, they are interchangeable. Meaning if I have a volume, which is an EBS, I can quickly convert this volume to a snapshot. And if I have a snapshot, I can quickly convert this snapshot to an AMI. Likewise, if I have an AMI, I can convert to a snapshot, and then from a snapshot, I can convert to an EBS volume. Then you can also, so using this process, you can create a volume, and then through the step-by-step process, you can eventually get or create a server. So let me quickly show you this process or what I mean. So let's get started. So what we do here is that I'll launch an instance, and then I'll configure my instance to display a certain web page. Let's just call it a simple web page. So let me call this instance. Let me call this instance first. Then I come over here, I use an Amazon Linux. Then I use a free tier enabled instance type. Then I use an existing key pair. So let me use a key pair that is similar to what I have here first here. So I use first because I have this key pair already. Yeah, I want to allow SSH because I have SSH into the instance and I'll configure a simple web page. Then I want to use, let me use 8 gigabytes. Then you come and you click on, you launch your instance. Okay, click here so you can see the details of your instance. Okay, now you grab your instance IP address so you can SSH to your instance. Okay. If you can see over here, we have a key pair over here. So the key pair is what we use for the settings of our instance. So we can quickly SSH to it. Let me try this. Just in case you can see, let me just click here. Now as you can see, we have a key pair here that we can use to SSH. So you use the SSH command. Okay, we have successfully SSH to our instance. So what remains is we want to create a simple web server. So we have Python already installed because we are using an Amazon Linux based image. So we have Python installed already. So to create that, we will create this folder on our instance, and then we'll go over there, we'll start a web server. So we want to create a file called index.html. It's just a simple HTML file which our web server will respond to whenever someone accesses our web server in the right port. Okay, let's see if the file is present. Yeah, you can see it's present there. And you need to give them my user the right permission. You need to give it the right permission so it can start a server. Okay, now this is a Python command to start a web server at the port 443. And what happens is that when someone accesses my instance on that port, it will quickly respond with the index.html file. Okay, yeah, that's all we need. We simply just use the IP address of my instance, then we indicate the port. In this case, it's 443. So that's what we do now. We'll copy the IP address of my EC2 instance, and then we'll access the server over 443. Because we don't have the certificates, so it's saying this can be a bad connection or something, but we'll continue because we know as you can see, welcome to AI and Cloud Tech, then Snapshot, EBS, and AMIs. If you access your server, you see that is what, okay, you see that is what we copied to, see it here, that's what we copied to our index.html file. So yeah, so we just prove that this is the state of our EC2 instance. Our EC2 instance has the script, has an HTML file, which has this thing. Welcome to AI and Cloud Tech, Snapshot and EBS. So let's close this, then we'll go back. We'll stop our EC2 instance. Or we want to delete it. Okay, so let's quickly do this. This is the volume we have attached to our EC2 instance. We click on it. Now we can see the volume attached to our S2 instance. So what we can do is we can create a snapshot of this volume. To create another instance named second. Okay, so I think this is a better way to show this demonstration. So we have the EBS volume, which is like a virtual hard drive for our server or our EC2 instance. So what we want to do is now we want to create a snapshot. Now remember what I told you. A snapshot is the data on your EBS volume or your hard drive. You are moving it from the hard drive to a service called S3. S3 is a fully managed service or a serverless service from AWS. Of course, it has hardware as well, but it is fully managed and it is optimized. That's why it's cheaper for you to store to store huge data over there on S3. So we are moving this data from our EBS volume and we are converting it to a snapshot. Of course, the EBS volume will remain. So that is the point of this description. Create another instance named second. Okay, now we can create our snapshots. Our snapshots have been successfully created. It does take a little bit of time to fully create. So you can see the progress is 0%. So we need to give it a little time. Okay, now we have successfully created the snapshot. As you can see, it's 100% and it's completed. So your snapshot lives in S3. Now what remains is for you to convert your snapshot to an AMI. So when you convert your snapshot to an AMI, you are simply adding an extra position for you to store the details of your server. So you are adding the details, the extra position for the metadata of your server, the OS or the kernel of your server. So create image. You come over here from actions. You say create image from snapshots. So let's call it second server. Okay. Used to create a second server. Okay, that's all you need. Just come over here to create it. Yeah, just come over here, create your image. You can make the other settings for maybe the size of storage you need. Okay, after creating your AMI, so let's check the list of AMIs we have over here. Yeah, we have the AMI over here, which is one I created just now. Notice the name, second server. Then from your AMI, you can launch an instance. You click this button, launch instance from AMI. So it's the typical thing you do with your AMI. You launch a new instance with your AMI. Although you can create a snapshot or you can create an EBS volume from your AMI. So let's name this server second based on the description we have given earlier. So name it second. So when you are launching a new server using an AMI, you don't get to select the OS type or the other thing. So these are the metadata of your server, which I mentioned earlier. These are the metadata, which is the OS type, the architecture, the type of virtualization, and every other thing. So these are selected by default, but you can select a new instance type, which is whether you want to use EC2 micro, if you want one virtual CPU, or if you want 2 GB of memory. So this is the place. This is where you can make your change. And you can as well make your change over here at the key pair. So let's imagine you lost your previous key pair, so you can use a new key pair over here. So, but for me, I'll select my first key pair. You can decide to use a new key pair, it doesn't matter. You can decide to use a new instance type, it doesn't matter. Then you can change the security group, or let me just use the previous one. Let me use the default. Then you can decide to change the storage, but you cannot go below, because your snapshot or your EBS volume already had details that the capacity of it was 8 GB. You cannot go below 8 GB. You can only go above. So let's leave it at the limit, which is 8 GB. Then you launch your instance. Click over here. If you notice, we are no longer using first, we are using second. If you come over here to the instance page, you see 2 instances, which is the first and the second. So this one is pending, but I think by now it would have started running. Let's go over to instance details. So these are second instance, still pending. By now it should have be up and running. Yeah, it's up and running. You copy your IP address of your instance. If you notice, it's not the same as your previous one. It's not the same as the previous one. So now what we need to do is we'll create another tab here, and we can SSH to our second instance. Yeah, we SSH to our second instance. We are using the same key pair because we did not change the key pair, we did not change the instance type. We are still using the free tier. Okay, now we have SSH to our instance. So let's confirm that the folders, the files, everything we created previously for our first instance, it's still there. So you can see the demo folder. So we go into demo. Let's see if our index file is still there. So let's print the content of our index file. As you can see, welcome to Cloud Tech, Snapshot, EBS, and AMI. So what we can do is let's run the server. So we can, let's run the server. Then we can access it from we needed to give it permission. Now we can start the server. Okay, it has started. So note that we need the IP address for this one. If you go to your first server, the IP address is different. This one is 9760 at the end. Come over here to this one is 97239. Okay, we do the same thing we did for the other one. 443. And then it will say the connection is not secure, but we'll still continue. So you see. So notice we are using the IP address of the second server 97239. So what happened? Let me explain what happened. When we created our first instance, like I mentioned previously, our first instance has an EBS volume, which is the virtualized hardware that stores our OS, our kernel, and then the files on our volume, the files and folder on our volume. And then we used the EBS volume to create a snapshot. So those details are moved to S3. So S3 is a kind of cheaper storage service or solution compared to your EBS volume. Then from our snapshot, we created an AMI. So the AMI is simply just storing more details about not just the root volume at this point or the volume or EBS volume at this point. It's also storing details about our server, which is the image type, in this case the OS type, the architecture, and the every other metadata it needs. Then we created a new instance or a new server using the AMI. At this point, when creating your new instance for server, you can decide to use a new capacity, not architecture yet, but a new capacity, which is the number of virtual CPUs you need and the RAM size you need, and also the you can upgrade the EBS volume size you need in this case. Then when we created that, if we go over to our server, we still see that the data of the EBS volume is still there. So if we go back to our EBS volume, we'll see that we still have two EBS volume in this case, which clearly shows that we have two virtualized hardwares that has the folders and the files we created. So that is what I simply want to explain to you about EBS volume, AMIs, and snapshots. So let me recap in the most simplified way possible. To understand EBS volume, AMIs, and snapshots, you start with your EBS volume because that one is closer to what you know, which is your hard drive. So your EBS volume is a virtualized hardware. It allows multiple people to share a single hardware. So this person can take the 2 gigabytes, this person can take 20 gigabytes out of the big hardware. Then your snapshot is simply a backup of what you have on your hardware. So we are simply moving the data from the hardware, which is more expensive and active, to something that is passive and less expensive and managed for you, which is your S3. Then your AMI is a mixture of your snapshots and then the details about the server you intend to run in this case. So it carries the OS data, the metadata about your architecture you intend to run, the architecture of the server you plan to run. So if you notice, when we were creating the new server using the AMI, we could not select a new kind of OS because our AMI already contains the details of the OS we intend to run in this case. So that is the main difference. Your EBS volume is closer to it's more like your hardware. Your snapshot is a backup of the data in your hardware to S3. Then your AMI, it contains more details, not just the volume, but also the server details, server metadata, and OS. So your AMI always contains a snapshot. So we can display it here. If you come over here to your AMI, you see that your AMI contains a snapshot. Then the snapshot contains what? The data about the EBS volume and more details about your server. So you come over here to the storage. Now you can see your snapshot. You click over here to take you to a snapshot we created from the EBS volume. So remember, we gave it a description. And we should see the description, which is to create another instance named second. So Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please comment. You can ask your questions, and please like the video and subscribe to the channels. We talk about everything relating to cloud and AI on this channel. Thank you. Please remember to delete your resources. Delete your snapshots, delete your EBS volume, delete your instances, because you get charged for your instance, you get charged for your snapshots, you get charged for your AMI, you get charged for your EBS volume. So ensure you delete every single one of them.
Your gateway to AI and the cloud. We make videos showing you the latest in tech, and we break down the real-world use cases. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching.